Hey guys, it's Matt. This is probably the hardest video I've ever tried to make. I've been racking my brain about this for weeks and really a lot over the weekend. Monday, no video after the free voice video. I have no idea where this is going to end up, and a lot of times the video starts and I kind of end up in a different place than where I thought I was going to end up kind of talking it through in the video. But let me just get right to the point. Everybody around us, all the different groups in this world, of course, they believe they have it all figured out. Everybody has it all figured out. And then, of course, we believe we have it all figured out, right? We're the only ones, hi Czar, we're the only ones that can see through the trick, right? Isn't that a coincidence? What a coincidence. See, that you know where I'm going with this. I've been saying this now for a long time, months. We have to keep on the table that we are being fooled as well. A lot of people aren't going to like a lot of what I'm going to have to say, but it has to be said. This has to be kept on the table, and we need to reconcile this. So all these groups all over the world, university professors and scientists and very smart people, of course. And then there's conspiracy researchers. You say, well, they're just continuing to focus on Tartaria, and they're fooled. And there's this one. Does it make sense that this could be the case? Maybe it is. Maybe we've won. But does this make sense? I have to keep this on the table that we're equally fooled. There's this one group, all in this entire world, inside the truth research community, that has seen through the trick properly. Has basically seen what this reality is for. And this little group, us, we've won. Does that make any sense to you? Now, that doesn't mean we should throw out everything we've ever come to know or ever any conclusion. That doesn't mean throw everything out. It just means this world, this reality is going to offer us a false graduation. It's going to offer a final door. It's going to have us walk through it. And it will want us to say, we've won. We now have this place figured out. But it is a worthy adversary, and it's not going to... The first win, to me, where we're getting kind of close to feeling like we have it figured out, is going to be it's going to be a false door, in my opinion. And I don't want us to fall into that trap. So I don't know how to present this. I have no idea. I've been trying to rack my brain all weekend, and I don't think we're going to conclude this here. But just start with the basics. What does your inner knowing tell you? All these different groups all over the world, all these different spiritual leaders and scientists and whatever it may be. We believe there's different types of spiritual incarnations here, and mystics, whatever it may be. And just, we're inside the truth research community, just one little group has it all figured out. Does that make any sense to you? We have to keep on the table that we are maybe not equally falling for the trick, but this is a reality generation machine, and it has customized its trick for each type or category of person. I guess that's a corporate fiction name, that, you know what I mean, that goes through the process. So even to the very end, we have to say that we can never let our guard down and believe we've won. So that doesn't mean, well, Matt, look at the ridiculous examples. Does that mean, what does that say about the inflated tire at the bottom of but then you get into, okay, that's ridiculous, of course. Is there any reality that we know of where there could have been a lost passport out the window and an inflated tire? And your friends and family can't see the obvious, which is to us obvious, but is it only obvious to us? I don't know where this is going, but you understand that the wise man or woman needs to keep this on the table. You sense in your inner knowing, it wants us to get to a certain point where we believe we've walked through a door and turn around and say, we've won. We did it. We're the only ones here. It's setting us up for that. Maybe it already set us up for that. That doesn't mean that our interpretation of the inflated tire and the passport is wrong. that could exist in this, but you have to get into the craziest of things. Again, the multiple realities. In my friend Tony's reality, maybe it's completely normal that an inflated tire survives a 1,000 degree. I'm not going to get it. Let's not get into the details here, guys. You know, we've been over this. The thousands of 10,000 degree fireball, and you have to get into, any kind of weird theory is on the table in terms of how this reality works, especially if you're Mandela affected. So let's not get too much in the weeds. The point is, at the very basic level, what does your inner knowing tell you? When I put it just like I did, I guess this will be the third time I've said it. Everybody here, priests and poets and politicians. That's from a song. So I can't place the song. Please don't comment. They have it all figured out. Everybody has it all figured out. But our little group says they're all fooled, and we know we have it figured out. Ooh. This reality is a worthy adversary, the dark part of reality, and it's likely, at a certain level, we will be fooled to thinking we're the only ones that have succeeded. It's just, what does your inner knowing tell you? That we've won, it's over, there's nothing more to do? Is that what your inner knowing tells you? Poets, priests, and politicians. It's the freaking Sting, that villain, or the police. Poets, priests, yeah, Sting. What a villain. Sorry. So, what does your inner knowing tell you? It tells me it's a false door. It's a false award, or we're going to think we've won when we haven't. And what exactly does that mean? Well, I don't know. I've got to pause this and try to see what I want to discuss in the next segment. But that doesn't mean, again, if it doesn't mean everything this is hard to talk about. When some idiot comes out after a school event and takes a podium, and we have thousands of idiotic presentations we've witnessed, where anybody should be able to see right through that. As usual, we're the only ones that can see it. A 110-story building doesn't fall like a bowling ball. There are tens of thousands of things we see as obvious, where they can't see it. Of course, we've been over this thousands of times. It has been our biggest frustration. But then to say, we've won. I recognized it years ago when I scolded myself when I said 10 years ago or 12 years ago, I said, okay, we've done it. We've seen through the trick. We've won. And I said, a year after that, I said, that's wrong. That's part one. That's where you got into part one, part two, the work, part two, what we're here to do for our spiritual selves, part two, the worry about yourself activities. That's where part one and part two came from. That I did say, 12 years ago, we've won. Likely, we can see through this nonsense. We're the only ones. That may be the ultimate goal of this reality. It is one of the goals, in my opinion, because it's all a trick. See, the difference between us versus the poets, priests, and politicians, and Neil deGrasse Fed, and scientists, and mystics, and religious leaders, the difference between us is we're always keeping on the table, at least our little group, and that's what I'm trying to do with you now, always trying to keep on the table that we're not that smart, and we haven't figured it out, and it likely has one or two more tricks that we have to overcome, and we're not done, and it's going to make us seem like we've completed the task. It's going to make us seem like we've finished and we've won. That does put us, as I've said many times recently, in a superior position to all these other groups. Is that the three Ps? The poets, priests, and politics. That's the three Ps, like premier, president, and prime minister, and assistant ski instructor. That puts us in a superior position. Everybody else just has it all. They know. Matt, didn't you watch Anderson Cooper last night? That'll tell you what's what in the world. Okay, and we say, well, that's absurd, of course, but at least we're continuing to not get comfortable. That's what actually one of the if one thing to remember about this reality that I guess would come out of a video like this is we need to never, ever get comfortable. So we've won. Put your feet up on the desk. We've won. No, that it gets into, all that it's done to attract our attention. Mistakes on purpose. I don't sit here and pat myself on the back. There's newer people that come and say, "What have you done? What's this guy put into the community?" I never listed out, but that was mine. That was mine 10 years ago, or even more. I said, this is all for us. They're not making mistakes here. This is to get our attention. Whether it be an inflated tire or the Robbie Rebby Bibby Bobby with what that's for us. It was for us. There's no mistake they're making. Mistakes on purpose. Well, if the goal is we can see through the trick, well, why is it crafting a trick in order for us to see it? Why is it crafting its trick in order to be seen? See? So, at the very basic sense, and if anybody, who knows how long I'll just ramble on, and if you don't have a lot of time, the basic sense is, of course, this is what we're talking about here is further evidence and reinforcement to leave all the conspiracy behind. That it doesn't seem like that's going to be the final outcome of what I'm floating here or proposing, but to leave all the conspiracy, all the specific conspiracy behind is one way of dealing with this, but that's not it. I'm sure there's more. Let me just make sure this is recording and pause and come back. All right, I sat here for a few minutes. Let's look at mistakes on purpose and see where that leads us regarding, what I floated in the first section. Look the Free Voice video about the Pentagon. When we look closely at its presentation, what's consistent across the board? What do we find every single time? That very quickly, at some level, the presentation becomes ridiculous, right? So let's just look at, what the Free Voice video, the Pentagon related to 2001. It didn't have to do it the way it did it. See, it's to suck a certain group of us in. That it's to suck our group in. There could have been something that whatever went down, they could have in their presentation made it much more legitimate. Where we see, if you're not that familiar, the damn pilot, whatever, the pilot jerk off. He flew past, then he banked 270 degree. He did a 270 degree loop to loop, came in just 5 feet off the ground. It didn't see it, and boom. It didn't have to do that. See, it didn't have to do that. Now, if it's so absurd, man, how come your friend Tony and our cousins can't see it? Well, that's the separate issue. That's the download. That's we've talked about that a lot. They can't see any of it, no matter how ridiculous it gets. It doesn't. They can't see it. But why was it so ridiculous? In other words, if it was trying to be as legitimate as possible in that segment of what went down in 2001, it would have been a Saudi national that had flown for Saudi, right? They would have put that in the story. That had been, all the F-15s and whatever from the U.S. go to Saudi so they can continue to bomb out Yemen, of course, and all the F-15s have gone to Saudi. Now, that doesn't help the presentation. It's gone to Jeddah and Riyadh. Could you imagine if I got off the plane in Jeddah or Riyadh, how quickly they'd snatch me up? That's why it's not no travel tours. You could have had that. His name was Hanny. Who names somebody Hanny? But they could have had that backstory. He had flown an F-15, and it would have made a lot of sense, right? Does anybody believe these caricatures? Was there really a Hanny on a flight? No, of course not. Was there really a flight? I don't. Obviously, you know my thoughts on this. So they didn't need. They could have. The backstory could have been more presentable. Could have had on radar just a struggling one line from the moment it was From a moment that Chuck E. Cheese was taken over by the clowns, it could have been just one straight line of that just somehow found its way, and it kind of missed, and it came down at a weird angle, and it didn't have to do the 270. I see it. All right, I got it lined up. I can see. You see it out the window? Yeah, I got it. You flown one of these before? No, but I got it. Back off. Give me a cup of coffee. He's looking out the window. They didn't have to do that. So that's for us. Does your best friend see it? No. Does your Aunt Ginny see it? That's for us. Okay? So if that's for us, then, I was like Nosferatu. If that's for us, then its trick is for us. So is it so? Is it just, have we won? We see through the trick. No. Not if the trick itself is for us. Matt, we thought we had it figured out. Now you just coming out here to muddy the waters. That's probably your role in this, Matt, to muddy the waters. No, nobody here deep down believes we've won yet. Now, no consequences, people. Are you going to give soul tokens? No. But, in terms of, we have an opportunity to do something for ourselves pretty darn significant in navigating this reality correctly. That's where we are. I guess, I don't know if you don't like the word, I'm just superior to these idiots out here that just run the rat race and compromise themselves, and just we understand this reality is a unique opportunity, or maybe something we have to do. If we're trapped or tricked or stuck here, it's not by the doing of an archonic being that's going to swoop down with his glider or something after we die. It's because if we're stuck here, it's in my opinion, our own doing, or a spiritual part of ourselves says, that we put that little son of a beach in there, and the material aspects we put. This was Tony's belief, but we put in these simultaneous incarnations. They have to collectively do something for the higher self. We have to achieve things. We have to come to certain realizations, or we're going to keep doing it over and over again, maybe stuck by our own design. So we do, how many, if this is true and you believe there's any credence to this, how many times have we done it, whether you call it simultaneous incarnations or reincarnations in what you would call the past. There's no past, present, or future. It's all a trick. There is no time. We'll talk about that some other time, and it's fun to talk about. Not like I have some big revelation that you guys haven't heard before. It's just fun to talk about. There's clearly no such thing as time. It's all perception of the record needle on the record, and where you place it. Where you place it is called a lifetime, and it's all there. It's all laid down. It's all on top of each other. So I like the way Tony talked about the simultaneous incarnations. It's not like, well, you could have had one of these little son of a beaches. One of your higher self incarnations could be a son of a bitch in the Civil War. Well, that was the past. That's from the higher self's perspective, or the oversoul's perspective. And we have to come up with a name. They're terrible. You've said that for years, Matt. You need to rename the higher self. Call it Joel or something. That's better than freaking oversoul. That seems like overlord. I got a spiritual aspect of me is my overlord or oversoul. That son of a bitch. We got a son of a bitch in the Civil War. We got this Matt son of a bitch. Oh, that was the past. No, it's all from the perspective of Joel. It's all the same. It's all going on at the same time. It just seems that way to us. That doesn't help. So, okay. The tricks are there, obviously, for us. Mistakes on purpose. The Pentagon presentation could have been really professional. It was made absurd on purpose. Now, is there anybody here that doesn't see that? Whether you believe it was planned by men and women in the smoking rooms or secret societies or reality, it's a dark part of reality itself. Is there anybody here that believes that, some genius level IQ at the Rand Corporation came up with what we need to do is fly them by and then do the 270. It doesn't, and somebody would have said, well, why you got to fly it like Top Gun? Let's make it believable for people. See, it's so, the adversary here is so crafty. It's so hardcore pipe hitting. And if nothing comes out of this video, it's that don't believe for a second we've won what we're supposed to do here. I've seen through the trick. Everything's cool. Everything's cool. We're done. What does your inner knowing tell you? We got it all figured out. We're the only ones, the whole reality, that we've won. Everyone else is lost. No. No way. And I don't think there's like the no consequences people. There's no dire consequence if we don't figure it all out or do exactly what we need, what your spiritual self needs from this experience or this incarnation. We don't, but I don't want to have to do it again. I don't. The whole of me doesn't want to do it again. We don't. Now is a unique opportunity for us because of what we understand about ourselves, about what this reality is, what it's for. I've always been about let's get it done now. I didn't say that the right way, so re-recording this segment. When I said let's get it done now, when Tony talked about the simultaneous incarnations of higher self, there could be hundreds or more, all operating in different realities or physical planes or what you call Earth, but at different time periods, all at the same time. He seemed to, I'm not bowing down before everything Tony said, that fits what I'm saying here. He seemed to say that most of these incarnations of higher self are complete screw-ups, complete jerk-offs, hand jobs. Just you've got Matt who's trying to understand who he is, his spiritual self, what the purpose of this entire reality is, trying to address the big questions, changing his life as much as possible to get what is supposedly needed out of this incarnation. He said most of the others, it seemed to imply, are complete f-ups. Could have a stockbroker over here, like I've remember talking about this many times, who just can't wait to get that 4:00 bell to go score some coke and go try to I don't know, score some sort of sex act. I used to say try to go get women, but now it's anything's game for these people. So but most of them are screw ups. And then Tony would say the higher self learns from all of it, Matt. The higher self learns even from fuck ups. I said, no, they can't. You can't learn from these idiots as much as from me, right? I'm special. He basically said, no, you're not. But, you might be the one. This is just me continuing what he might say. He said, you're not special. But if there are certain things to get done or certain realizations to be had, who's going to get it done? The incarnation, if you believe this, the incarnation that's like you and I, that are continuously trying to understand what this reality is, see through the trick, and based on there's still I was going to say, guys, in terms of what I've said here, in terms of how confusing it is or not, there's still a trick here because the entire reality is a trick. It's just what I'm saying here is it's customized for every single group. And of course, it's customized for us as well. And what exactly does that mean? And she stepped right on the cord, on the ball. She stepped right on the ball. She stepped right on the cord. Zara, sorry, sweetie. Go ahead down. Go ahead down. So it's customized, it's trick for everybody and for us. And at the very minimum, we need, and this relates to mistakes on purpose. At the very minimum, we have to see this. Say, let's customize this trick for us, mostly through ridiculous presentations that only we see, mistakes on purpose that only we see. But I was going to say sometimes it probably makes a real mistake, but very rarely. See, that's how supernatural everything is here. That's why it's so. Think about it. Most of the mistakes that I could come up with, just if me, you, and Greg booked into the room, would be ultimately I'd find them to be mistakes on purpose. That the first grade truther, or the third grade truther, or still fifth grade truther, still believes that it's just a mistake. That Robbie Bibby was supposed to do better at that podium. No, he wasn't. He was supposed to be as ridiculous, whatever that little creature Gollum Schmeagol thing is. He was supposed to be as ridiculous as he was. He did exactly what he was supposed to do, in a supernatural way where it was too perfect. Too perfect. And you say, Matt, it was so absurd. Everybody should have, I think it was a mistake, Matt, because everybody should have seen through it. But did they? The proof is in the pudding. They didn't see through it. You know, your friends and family, they come up with excuses. Matt, everybody grieves in a different way. Let's have some sympathy. Okay, everybody shows he's struggling. I mean, they come up, but it was so ridiculous, right? But nobody woke up to it but us. So therefore, it was exactly designed for us. So the way, you can't tackle this big question without the mistakes on purpose. If we don't get to the bottom of where this is going to end today, then we keep backing up to the most basic parts of this argument, saying, well, if it is putting out mistakes on purpose, which of course I'm not sure there'd be anybody here. You don't have to be old guard to see that these are mistakes on purpose, that it's all by design to suck us in, to get us, our type of entity, closer to it. For more research, for Bill's poster, research me. Don't walk by me. Research me. So we know to leave it all behind at that point. At this point, we know to leave it all behind. Whatever the research me. We know to walk by it. It's Ray Liotta. Come on, research me. Come on, man. Look, I'm Tartaria, man. Look, check it out. I got new architecture, new finds, new ancient aliens. Come. We know it does that. We know to just walk by. No more energy going in that direction. But the point of this presentation is, and I'll look to your comments again. I can only get us so far. I need your help to put the final pieces together. That's typically how it works. So we know to leave it all behind, to never dive into one research topic or any carrot that it dangles recitierly, never to look at it, other than if it's your hobby. Keep throwing that out. If you love to look at the old cathedrals, fine. As long as you understand that's in some way part of the reality trick. Whether you believe what Matt, now don't put words in my. I don't believe it was part of reality like you believe. Okay, that's fine. It's not part of the trick though. Trying to get us to figure out how it was built. That's not part of the trick. You don't have to believe what I believe. That's just part of reality itself. That's kind of where I am now because it can't ever be figured out. So to me, it's part of reality itself. Can never be figured out, or it would have been figured out in 1970, or would have been figured out in 1940, 1925, when all those jackasses seemed to be digging around and digging under the tunnels, the British Museum, and all that junk that they brought back into that museum. It would be figured out by now if it was meant to be figured out, not just how it was built, but what happened to the entire civilization. Not just the Egyptians, whether it be the Pyramid of the Sun and the Moon in Mexico, or hundreds of cultures. There's no evidence ever. It's all the same repeating script. What happened to it? It just, if you go to the Giza Plateau, I mean, we keep using that example, but there's thousands of others because that's the most prominent example. And you could just, by the way, for some, no, I don't want to say anything about a Mandela effect and this is hard enough to get out on its own without somebody saying, oh, this guy was making sense. Okay. Where if you go there and Cairo is right there, you could just walk through the streets of Cairo, spend the rest of your natural life. Could you find people that say, "Oh yeah, we're related to Tut, we're related to Tutankhamen, Rootin. We have the ancestry of the kings of the pharaohs." And see, there's no direct. This was the pharaohs and the kings and all the shit that they say were buried in those gold sarcophagi. Is that the plural of sarcophagus? I don't know. I just made it up. How did that translate into the people living now in Cairo? See, it just ends. Well, how? The Roman Empire. Well, that's a completely new can of worms. Catholic Church. Let's not go there. Let's not. Sometimes talking extemporaneous, guys, I throw stuff out, and people will wait. Like I make one little mistake, or they'll latch onto it. Like send me your 1 hour videotape with only 3 or 4 edits, and we'll see how you do. I'm going to make a lot of mistakes, but you see what I'm saying? All these cultures just went away. Well, what happened? So it's the same. It's part of the trick of reality itself in some way. Sorry to be so long-winded. You're not going to be able to find people in Cairo that say, "Oh yeah, here's my family tree right here. You can follow You can follow Muhammad here over to Ahmed, and no, that right to Tut, right to it. Just no, it just ends, and then okay. I guess I'm being repetitive. That person will be back commenting again. So backing up, mistakes on purpose to get our attention, no doubt. Why does it want it? Because it wants our attention means clearly we don't want we want to do the opposite. We don't want to take its bait. Okay, obviously we know this. We know this. But assuming, I mean, maybe it is as simple as this part 2 of the work. Assuming we aren't taking any bait anymore and looking at its specifics. And no doubt that doesn't mean whatever conclusion we come to here, we just throw out everything I said about part 2 of the work. No doubt about it. I mean, we don't throw it out. I mean, there's, in terms of, you leave the conspiracy behind every day. Okay, I'm part of something much larger. There could be a spiritual side of me that's not here. What, meditate on it. What am I here to do? To chase down mall events and school events? No, I don't know. I don't think so, Joel. Joel, that's from Risky Business. What did we name Joel before? The higher self. That's Risky Business. Sorry. What am I here to do? To analyze how the Giza Plateau is built? No. We'll do the role play with higher self, Joel. He said, but I figured out how they built the pyramids. You thought that's what you were supposed to do in your incarnation? Get the F out of here. Where are you again? You're Matt, little Matt. That's little Matt, that conspiracy son of a beach. Get out of here. You're gonna have to do it again. You're gonna sit up here with your feet up watching TV as the oversoul, and I have to go do it again? Yeah, go do it again. And only come back here when you get it right, you little bastard. Okay, maybe. Some people say the oversoul, the higher self, Joel, could be very selfish. Some people think only sending aspects of itself in here to get abused and beaten up and have emotional strife and trauma, and hatred and jealousy and all the 7 deadly sins and lost loves and emotional trauma. I guess I said that. And Simone Biles twisties and all the mental health issues. Some people say it could be very selfish. That's exactly the message in Severance, the Apple TV's Severance, where the innie, who works in Lumen is Earth. The innie is us, you and me. Every day we get up, we just think it's normal. The innie all the innie knows in Severance is the work environment. As soon as they step across at 5 o'clock at night, 1 millisecond later, they're just stepping right back in because they have no conscious recollection of the outside world. The outie steps into work, drives the car to the parking lot, walks up to the door, steps into work, and 1 millisecond later is stepping out. They have no recollection of all the 8 or 9 hours or however long they spent at work. That's the selfish. The outie is the selfish. The innie is the worker, inside Lumen, inside Earth. That could be many people, it could be what we are. But don't get freaked out about it. To me, it's just one level. The dream character to us is just us to the next level. It all makes sense. Just like when you wake up in the morning, the dream character. You don't, like I've said, you don't mourn the death of who you were in the dream. It just blends in. It all makes sense. The same likely will be when we die. It'll just make sense. I think it's pretty much that simple. But things, Tony stressed we're here for a reason. Things have to be, the oversoul, the higher self, or Joel needs to do certain things or be satisfied that it's done with these games. And he stressed that the little foot soldiers on the ground, if you believe it's plural, soldiers like you and me, are not essential. I mean, essential, but required. I mean, there is no other way, whether you believe it's selfish and has its feet up or not. Just like the outie in Severance. If the outie in Severance wants to keep the job and the paychecks coming in so they can enjoy their leisure life and their life at home once they drive home at 5 and their weekends off and their vacations, they still need the paycheck to come in, and that's the innie that does the work. We're doing the work here in this very difficult place for potentially a part of us that's not here. That's just the selfish way to paint the picture of what may be going on. I don't know. If it's me, if it's part of me, I can call it a son of a bitch. I can call it whatever name. It's not gonna. I don't think it. My pinky could be calling me names if it had a little mouth or whatever. And I'm like, I'm not gonna threaten to cut it off. It's part of me. Like, you say one more word, man, I'll put you in one of those things in elementary school you cut papers with or whatever. That's what actually in Severance. That's what she threatened. In Severance, she did threaten to get me out of here. She used the damn paper cutter we used to have in elementary school. They don't. I'm sure they haven't had that since probably since around the year 2000. The back of every classroom. What does this have to do with anything, Matt? There was this big, huge blade we had, and you'd put papers in. Most of the classrooms had it. I don't know. I don't remember even teachers using it that much. So some kid could stick their hand, and there was this paper cutter with a blade. Yeah. And then the tests would roll these blue ink. They'd roll the tests around this blue ink, and that's been done in a few movies. Smell the paper. Maybe that's why we're here. We have to smell all you had to do. If you smelled the paper, then you've won. Your oversoul Joel has won. Did you smell the paper? That's all we needed from the whole. That's all you needed from the entire reality. Why didn't you just let me know? Put a tattoo on my hand when I was born. Just smell the paper so we can leave. I don't know. But okay, guys. I guess I'll shut this down. But we've been tricked for so long. We're not done. We're not done being tricked, but we're not done in terms of what we need to do. Okay, it's great we see through the trick. It's all a trick. That's a superior position for us versus Aunt Ginny and your friends who think that Anderson Cooper 360 is real and all the news is real and every flag represents its own country and everything's. They believe in every bit of it. That is, the people around us are 100% falling for the trick. That's not. We are in a superior position. Okay, just to be having these general conversations, of course. Call that arrogant. Call it whatever you want. I don't know any other way to say it. Of course we're in a superior position to some jerk-off uncle of yours that can't wait to watch the world news. That's ridiculous. Of course we're in a superior position to total blockheads like that. Watch The Great Pumpkin recently, just as a nostalgia thing, and it was really weird. I mean, that's all we had back in the day. Like, you look forward to these big events. Like, Matt, Great Pumpkin's on tonight, Charlie Brown, and then it was a lot of nostalgia because I watched those Peanuts as a kid, and but it was weird. It just wasn't. Many parts weren't, and it was just riddled with magenta. The sky throughout the first 10 minutes was all magenta. I'm not going to say what I want to say there because somebody might be saying, well, this guy was making some decent points until he proved himself to be crazy. It was just weird. It just wasn't, parts weren't funny, but it was still a tremendous nostalgia. I'm glad I saw it. Anyway, Matt, we don't care about that. Sorry. So mistakes on purpose, the trick, what in terms of obviously the basics, and then I'll shut this down. The basics are, okay, we see inflated tire, whatever. We see this is a trick. We can see through it, but you have to again go back into your hot air balloon and go up to 100,000 feet and say, okay, it wants us participating in this aspect of the trick. The conspiracy generation machine here, which is unnatural, and it is supernatural, and that's where the first great truther will always never quite get it. They're always to try to figure things out as if everything is real. If you're lost. If you don't consider this world at least to be mysterious, supernatural, we've just seen too many things over the decades that there's just no possible way it could have been pulled off, and now we're seeing all the synchronicities and coincidences, etc. So it's the trick is this part of the conspiracy generation machine is literally designed for us. So at the very minimum, we know to no longer look at it, to research me, to walk away from it, not give it energy. But then that does lead to part two, the work and the personal things we need to do here for ourselves. But, there's just something missing. As, I guess I should have just started off the video with this. There's still something missing. Well, isn't that convenient, Matt? You float out here, something's missing, and you keep your channel. And you don't have to panhandle pencils on the street. People will say, I'm not just doing doing it to keep the channel going. You think that's what I'm doing? What is your inner knowing? What is your Jerry Maguire? What does your heart tell you, Jerry? You find them at Cronin's. What does your inner knowing tell you? That we're done? Does it? Go ahead. Am I just saying this to keep the channel going so we have more to ponder? What does your inner knowing tell you? I'll pause for 5 seconds. Just screamed, we've won, we're done, we're the only ones here that can figure it out, everything's cool? Or is there something we're not quite getting? We're still in a superior position. The people will dive back into mud flood this afternoon. That's lost. But there's something, I don't know. I'll look to this is where I need your comments, and we'll build on this. We will build on this. And hopefully, maybe we'll get it figured out in a few weeks. It's just, when I with the part one, seeing through the trick, part two, the work, the spiritual work. What does Joel need from your incarnation here? I thought that was it. I thought that was the end, because it worked so hard getting us interested in its conspiracy. It floats so much bullshit in front of us. If we could just leave it all behind and do whatever is your personal interpretation of part two, the work. I thought that's it. And there's no part two, the work is reducing fear, but it's never going to get down to zero. We're always going to be imperfect in this avatar body. We'll always have flaws. We'll always stink and smell and have issues and problems and pains. And we're never going to be perfect here. Never going to become the being of 4D and all that bullshit. So, but I thought that was it. Okay, now part one, the trick, we leave behind. Part two, with the work. And that's it, right? Whew, boy. It's like a false door or something. I don't know. That is a major part of it. I'm not throwing it out. Matt, you're going in loops here. We're not going to just shut it down. You're not getting anywhere. I know. I'm not getting anywhere. There's something else. I'm not going to be able to do it myself here. I'll just look to your comments and we'll go from here. Thanks, guys.